practice, Coach Lee. That was practice. So go ahead and regurgitate that, man. Go ahead and hit it. You get a chance to clean it up a little bit. Okay. So go ahead. Hey, let's do it, man. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. This is my man, principal of Northwest High School, Thomas Lee.
I am the proud principal at Omaha Northwest High School. Northwest High School is rocking and rolling. It's a great school. There's been a lot of great alumni come from Omaha Northwest High School. And so I am excited about being there. I'm excited about being in the Omaha Public Schools, where I've spent 30 years so far. And majority of those years were at Omaha North High School. I've also did a stint at Omaha Burke and Omaha Central. So I've been in 4 of our schools. Very proud to say that we are doing great work in the Omaha Public Schools. I believe in the collaboration and things that are going on and taking place for the betterment of our young people. And so I always get excited to talk about education. I get excited to talk about Northwest High School and all the great things that are taking place there, and looking forward to the forward movement of our school district. So thank you for allowing me to be here this evening. It's a great opportunity, great time. I enjoyed the first segment, and I'm looking forward to this segment as well.
Hey, man, you did pretty good. That was about 60 seconds. Okay. Dr. Adeline Williams.
Good evening, and thank you, 100 Black Men, for allowing me this opportunity to be on this panel. I'm the president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Greater Omaha chapter. I'm also a full-time professor teaching accounting and business at Metropolitan Community College. So I am very engaged with my students. I love the one-on-one with them, and to do what I can to help them to be successful and make an impact. And through the Coalition of 100 Black Women, our mission is to advocate on behalf of Black women and girls to promote leadership development and gender equity in the areas of health, education, economic empowerment. And so this is very important. And thank you very much.
Right on. Thank you. Mr. Barney, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay, Tim?
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate it, Tim, Richard, the whole panel here. Great opportunity to be a part of this. Willie Barney with the Empowerment Network. We are a collaborative organization. It's been working now for about 14 years in the city, bringing organizations, entities together to partner alongside the school district and work with a lot of partners. My wife and I also own, we believe in ownership and business ownership as well. So we have 3 small businesses with another one on the way, but I'll leave it there. Just really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this whole panel.
That's good. Well, thank you, Willie.
Ms. Ebony?
McKeever. Oh, no.
McKeever, Ebony McKeever. Not a problem. Yes.
Okay, McKeever. Okay, I'm
yes.
sorry. I'm sorry.
You're okay. So hello, thank you for the opportunity to be a part of the panel tonight. My name is Ebony McKeever, and I am currently the Social Studies Education Specialist with the Nebraska Department of Education. So previous to my position here, I was a social studies teacher. I've taught in Ohio. I spent 9 years teaching high school in Baltimore City, and then I did a year here in Omaha Public Schools. I think it was teaching in Baltimore City, though, during the uprising, and I walked out of my school building. I saw the National Guard and the SWAT team kind of facing off with the students that really pushed my teaching into the next gear. So my goal was really to empower students and not only provide the full scope of teaching them about their history, but also empowering students to understand their financial responsibilities and how that all impacts their communities and neighborhoods. I work with students with genealogy projects. I just want to make sure that we are creating a group of leaders that leave high school and are ready to take on whatever comes their way. And so happy to be here in Nebraska, and I'm happy to now lead social studies and work with communities and promote equity and just preventing the marginalization of social studies. I'll say that because I think in the previous session, a lot of what we were talking about is very much related to social studies. So thank you.
Well, Tim, it looks like we have an awesome panel here to talk. And thank you all for being on the panel. So let's just dive right in so we can make sure we make best use of our time. So we heard a little bit from the first panel about COVID, right? And excuses that can be made of why we should not educate as much. The challenges of the screen time if we're going full virtual, the challenges of dealing with COVID and the safety of our students, which is the utmost importance. But COVID-19 has in many ways forced us to rethink and reimagine education. What does the new normal look like for us? Whoever wants to jump in first. I know that's a heavy hitter.
I'll jump in first. I'm a big believer in COVID-19 and taking it and looking at it in a positive way, not the negative. All due respect to what it has done and taking people's lives, but we got to look at the positives. Here's what I've learned about COVID-19 when it relates to education. Number one, it's forced our teachers to educate themselves. They're starting to learn again. They're starting to learn what it's like to be the young people and having that technology in their hands and being able to use that to educate. You know what else it's done? It's caused them to collaborate with one another, to work cross-curricular and to work together, to find the best means to give instruction to our young people. It's caused them to plan. It's caused them to be creative educators. I'm telling you, it has made them to become new believers in the way we deliver education to our students, the way we deliver instruction. And guess what? We're not going to sit around and make excuses and feel sorry for ourselves. We're going to find a way to deliver the education to our students and make it positive. I am excited about what is happening, and I can only speak for Northwest, although I know from all my colleagues that the same things are happening in their buildings. But I'm telling you, I sat in on classrooms today via Teams, and those teachers are teaching. And they are finding ways to be creative, to deliver that instruction to their kids. And I felt like I was sitting in a classroom, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So I believe that COVID-19 has forced us to look at education in a more structured way, in a more positive way, in a more personal way. I've seen teachers being more personal with their students via remote than I see sometimes in person. And that's okay. So you know what? Let's take this remote learning that we're doing. Let's continue to perfect it. And when we get back to school, whether we're in a 3-2 model or whether we're 100%, it should be even better. And we should not stop delivering virtually, even when we get back in person. I think it should now become a part of our new normal.
Now, just adding to that real quick. What do you think the effect's been in terms of parents? I mean, because that's kind of a whole new thing that's happening, and that COVID-19 has pushed upon them.
And I think it's been hard for our parents. I do, because they're working, especially those with the younger kids. But, you know, I have to go back to, I can't remember which panelist said it in the first one, but we can't make excuses. We have to find ways to work together and support each other and help each other. And that's what I have been seeing, even with those who are teaching in our building who have their own kids, and helping each other and supporting each other. You know what else, though, I've learned, especially with the high school kids, their parents are actually sitting in on their classes. Hello, that's okay. They're sitting in the background and they're getting education themselves, and that's okay, because we have some parents that are now having to work from home, and so they're able to monitor their students. They're able to be involved with their students. We want parent involvement, and so this has caused them to be more involved with their kids, especially those who are able to stay at home and work remotely. Do I feel for those who are working 2 and 3 jobs and can't be at home? Absolutely, I do. But I don't want it to be an excuse for our students not to be educated. I understand where they're coming from, but our goal is to make it as easy and possible for them and less stressful, so that they can do what they need to do and know we're going to support their kids.
Right on.
So, Ebony, I have a question for you specifically.
Okay.
You know, serving as a social studies education specialist at the Nebraska Department of Education, we know there's been a lot of chatter for a long time about social studies curriculum within our schools. Students want to make sure that what they're learning is accurate, and then taking deeper dives into the lives of African Americans when they're talking about the social studies curriculum. not just learning about negative things when it comes to social studies and African American lives, but the positive things, because we always want to make sure that we're planting positive seeds. What are some things that you can tell us as far as the social studies curriculum, what you've been able to see, some things that you and your team have been able to change on that board, and then some things that we should look forward to in the future?
Absolutely. So the first thing I'll say is our team has actually been able to get some legislative action moved towards social studies at the passage of Rule 79-724, which now for the state of Nebraska mandates that we have to have a multicultural education in every school, K through 12. There's no excuse. And we're going to be following up with school districts and ESUs to make sure that that multicultural education is being implemented inside of these schools. And even in the revision of the social studies standards, from the 2012 standards, we just revised the standards in 2019 and they were adopted of November of last year. We're starting to see a lot more equity within the standards. We're seeing that the standards are now mentioning African Americans. We're seeing that the standards are mentioning women. We're seeing that the standards are even mentioning our Native Indigenous populations. So we're really working to make sure that we're not just talking about slavery, but we're talking about all the accomplishments that Blacks and Latinos and everybody has contributed, not only to our, I want to say, national structure, but we're looking at the contributions that Blacks and marginalized people have created here in Nebraska and locally as well. And then I'll go back to what Mr. Lee was saying even earlier, what we can look forward to. I'm a big proponent of inquiry-based learning. And now I see that with COVID is actually pushing our educators to really embrace this inquiry learning. So now we have our students in school using higher level thinking skills. We have our students investigating. We have our students evaluating and comparing and contrasting and justifying, because now our educators are really forcing our students to find information, compare to sources. How do you know this source is accurate? How do you know that this source isn't? What are the key takeaways that we're going to get? And even if a source isn't accurate, why is this still important to what we need to learn and where we need to go in the future? So I think we're making a lot of strides in social studies, and I just hope to keep being with the system here and keep pushing it forward. I think it's important now that we really have a lot of momentum going forward.
Now, when I love that, there's policy that's in the front of helping them push this. But when you think about, just talk just real quick in terms of just this whole Black Lives movement, and people say, well, why, everybody matters, right? But I think we're here because of lack of knowledge and taking the time. And I'm getting a call from a lot of my white friends and saying, you know what, I didn't know. That there was so much pain and suffering in terms of the black experience. And I think one of our panelists, if we can drive home and not dilute in terms of the real Black experience, I think we would probably not be so deep in trouble in terms of right now.
Mm-hmm. And you know what, I will say that I also think this is the time really for our educators, for our students, and for parents and for stakeholders really to leverage the schools and the school systems and say, like, we really want to make sure that we're incorporating the true struggle of African Americans in their history and the role that they've played in Omaha, the role that they played in Nebraska, and even the role that they played in the United States. I think a lot of times, it's hard when it's a marginalized people that are now trying to say, we want our voices to be heard. Well, now we have the collective voices of everyone saying we can make our voices heard, and we really need to make sure that happens. And so again, I'll say, like, organizations that have their ear to the streets and they understand what parents and students are wanting, we can get those collective voices together, and now we can start mandating that those changes are made in the schools. And I also say, Nebraska is a locally controlled system for school systems. So we really do have the ability to leverage our school districts by showing up to school board meetings. We have a lot more power, I think, here in Nebraska than a lot of other places New York would have, or some other states, because they are state mandated. We have a lot more power to make change at the local level.
Local control.
Mm-hmm.
So Dr. Williams and Mr. Barney, from your respective perspective and level of expertise and concentration, dealing with, Step Up and the 1,000 youth that you had over the summer and looking at doing it for a year, Willie, and then Dr. Eileen Williams with the National Coalition of 100 Black Women do. how can we make big, meaningful strides as a community?
As the president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, as I mentioned in my introduction, we advocate on behalf of Black women in the areas, and one of the areas is education, also health and economic empowerment. In order to make meaningful strides, it's very important that we connect together. We're in a situation that we cannot do anything alone by ourselves. And I look at it as that the bigger the pot, the more voices, the better, the stronger impact that you can have. So as the organization of 100 Black Women, we can work with other organizations, work with educators. Educators have a built-in platform. We're in front of students. We are in front of the Board of Governors or the school board. And so we have an audience that we can be a voice to impact and affect change. And this is what the Coalition of 100 Black Women are doing in terms of the get out to vote, the voter registration. And so that's part of educate, because in order to impact change, you have to know what you're doing. You have to be informed. And that is what we want to do, is to inform our audience so that they are able to, we encourage them, we want them to go out and vote, because it is using that voice of vote you can affect change. So it's important for us not to do it just ourselves, but to connect with the 100 Black Men Empowerment Network, connect with other organizations. And also, as a professor at Metropolitan Community College, they are very supportive of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Greater Omaha chapter. We've had events on the campus. They support us, being sponsors. And so it is about connecting with educational institutions and the community to work together so that we can be a stronger voice and impact change.
And they also support the 100 Black Men too.
Yes.
I would just build off of that, Richard. I would just build on that the partnership with the school district, with the MCC and others. And it's what we have really tried to focus on is a cradle to career pathway with the district, with all of those partners. And how do we collaborate, focus on those schools that may be having some challenges, but coming in not to throw stones, but how do we work collectively to move things forward? And Richard, you asked about step up, and also tying back to what Mr. Lee talked about with the moment that we're in. This is a all hands on deck moment. And I'm seeing it. I'm seeing organizations. I'm seeing people call and Facebook and say, hey, how can I help parents? What can we do with the school? My daughter's doing this, and I'm seeing something that was not happening previously that is really now elevated. And one of the things I just want to recognize Monique Cannon, the Step Up team, the partnership with OPS and others. This summer, we had 500 youth over that 8-9 week period that were doing virtual learning about careers, from technology to health to entrepreneurship to managing stocks to developing partnerships with police, between police and community, dialoguing with the chief and the gang unit and Cherie and others in the police department all summer long, learning for at least 4 hours a day. 14 and 15-year-olds, they showed they had the capacity. We had some of the highest rates of attendance and engagement we've ever had. So to Mr. Lee's point, we had to, Monique and the team had to re-engineer on the fly how to communicate and train and prepare our young people for the future, but do it through virtual technology. And bring all those, and the collaborators and the partners stepped in, helped out. They participated as coaches, as participants, as just being guest speakers. And then on the other side, we have been connecting our young people with employment opportunities, hands-on, so they can connect their in-classroom learning with what's really going on, and putting some money in their pocket at the same time. So that's really my main message as I'm hearing the conversation is this virtual environment is forcing all of us out of our comfort zone to be incredibly creative and innovative. And over the years, what I've seen both from a corporate sector and now from the nonprofit sector, during these times when the heat is on and the challenges in our face, the ones that sit back and wait, they get left behind. The ones that innovate in the moment, those are the ones that when we come out of it have accelerated to the next level because they've maximized the moment. That's what I believe we have to do right now.
And I just want to add, I have two hats as a professor and also as the president of the Coalition of 100 Black Women. In March, I recall a student telling me that she would never take online classes. She knew that wasn't for her. That's why I was always on campus. And then since we were forced into the situation of a remote learning, by the end of the quarter, she told me this wasn't bad. She said, I would not have never given this a try. And so that's one good thing if we something out of COVID. It is forcing people to try something different that they probably would not have tried. And in fact, she told me she's going to take more online classes. She is more involved in taking Zoom, signing up for conferences, anything she said that is online to increase her learning. And she didn't think it, she thought it was okay, that it was really good. And then as the president of the Coalition of 100 Black Women, one event that we would have had in person, Money Matters, and since it was canceled due to COVID, we are having 8 individual workshops on economic empowerment. More people are attending that than if we probably definitely would not have had 8 individual workshops. But that one event, now we are doing on a regular basis Zoom activities to promote economic empowerment and wealth building among Black women and girls. So you're right. You know, we're all saying that it has brought us into being more creative, looking outside the box and connecting. And we're working more with other organizations. And so I think that is great that is coming out of this in terms of the connection with other organizations and helping people that they could be in the comforts of their home and they're learning all virtually.
And I want to go back to what Coach Lee said. When he said, with this new reimagining education, some pros that have come out of it. I owe 100%. I have 4 children, and all are in different aspects. So I have actually 2 in high school, 1 in middle school, and 1 in elementary school. And Coach Lee said, you're having these teachers essentially meet these students where they are. In church, we would say, meet the people where they are, right? The teachers are meeting them on this technology. So they're learning about technology. They're learning how to engage. They're learning the breakout rooms. These kids are using more brain cells doing this virtually. And it kind of ties back to what the first panelist had talked about of having hands-on experiences instead of just coming and walking through the motions. And of course, there are some things that we'll continuously learn as we really reimagine what this new norm can look like. But let's say I am a parent and I am at home and I'm struggling to help my children. I'm struggling to help them develop relationships with their teacher because I was also the type that I couldn't do it online. I need to be in person. I need to be able to ask the teacher right there for help, right there, not via screen. What would you be able to say to tell that parent to keep them motivated, to understand that new things bring on new challenges? But like Coach Lee said, new challenges can also bring on new opportunities for greatness.
You're 100% right. And I agree with what you're saying. And our teachers are having to learn to meet the kids where they're at, just like you said. But I'm telling you, what I was excited about today was just the way that the students and the teacher are communicating using the chat box. Do you realize the kids are more comfortable now on asking questions and then sharing their work online and being able to share their screen and show the work that they're doing. I'm be honest with you, I have to be somewhat a little bit surprised with the engagement of our kids. It's actually almost increased because I think they feel more comfortable with it. And because technology, you know, our kids are ahead of us as far as I'm concerned. I'm learning a lot that I never knew. And kids are teaching us and showing us stuff. And so we're in their world right now. But what we don't want to do is lose our connection with relationships and still realizing that there's more to it than just sitting behind the screen with each other. And so hopefully we still get that opportunity to be back in person, working together and still learning and still growing. I want to add just something that Willie had said, because it's important. I got to point this out because this has not stopped. Urban League, 100 Black Men, Avenue Scholars, Upward Bound, Partnership for Kids, College Possible, Empowerment Network, the universities, the North Star program on AIDS, can I just tell you, they are still rocking and rolling and helping and supporting our kids. So when we say it takes a village, I'm excited about the fact that those programs are still finding ways to connect with kids and help our kids and support our kids and support our families. So you know what? When we need somebody to step up and support our families and our parents, they're there to do that, and they've been very helpful. We also want people to understand, though, that the role of the counselor and the social worker and all those people, it is still going on. It hasn't changed, and we appreciate that. We're still reaching our kids. We're still doing things. Hey, guess what? The bus drivers, they still working. You know what they're doing? They're coming up and picking up devices and textbooks and materials and supplies and delivering to our kids so that they can still continue to do the things that they would be doing if they were in a regular classroom. I'm telling you, the village has stepped up and they're doing great stuff for our kids. I can't be more excited about what's taking place and what's happening.
100% agree with that. And it seems, these conversations, these windows we have just always seem too short, and we always need more time to engage in dialogue. But what I want to be able to do as we're coming to the end of this session and have to move into the last session, I want to give you all 1 minute. What will be a final thought from what you've heard in the first panel, from what you've heard in the second panel? Now, what will give you 1 minute to just give advice, educate? What does it look like for the new norm?
And 1 minute only has 60 seconds in it.
Okay, I would say when I hear the new norm, we need to understand that the new norm is fluid and it's changing. We have to, whatever the COVID situation is at that time, we have to be willing to be flexible and we have to be willing to make changes. I've seen that every month. And what I would say is just to be ready that we may have to make a change, something that will, of course, help others, and just not be glued to the new normal. This is it right now, but be ready in order to make changes on what the situation is at this time. For example, the school there right now is the first quarter. It could change the second quarter. At Metro, I'm teaching remotely at least through the end of the year. The new normal is what it is at that particular time. And next quarter, I may have to make a change. So it's just important to be flexible, think outside the box, and do what to help students to be successful. As a professor and as the president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, it is very important for me to help others to be successful. I think that's a minute. I can go on.
Go ahead, Ebony. We'll let you go next.
All right. So for me, I want to say that I think we need to embrace the social emotional learning aspect. I think for too long that's sort of been left out of our education. And I think as we move forward, we need to, one, have our students understand and embrace social emotional learning. I think we really need to work with our teachers, and our teachers not only understand the social and emotional learning, but they need to understand restorative practices and trauma-informed training for our students. And I think last, as we were talking about earlier, with the ability to connect with our parents, I think if schools embrace social emotional learning, they also connect with parents in that way too, because parents are also worried about what's going on and how this is affecting their children's education. So if we can kind of embrace them as well, I think it's just a formula that works if we use it going forward.
Thank you.
Before we transition into the last segment, I would like to, I believe we have Jermaine Jones. He's with Boys and Girls Club, and Dr. Ken Bird, I believe, is on. But I just really again, 1 minute, because it takes that community too. As Thomas Lee talked about in terms of all the work and things that's happening, even Willie Barney, the same, is a collective force that makes these things happen. So is Jermaine on? Can we bring on Jermaine Jones from Boys and Girls Club just to weigh in terms of what they're doing, what pivots that they've made, and same with Dr. Ken Bird with Avenue Scholars. Are we on? Are they on yet?
I see Jermaine is on now.
Okay, Jermaine.
Everybody, I'm on.
Jermaine Jones.
Yes, sir.
Hey, how you doing, my man? I saw you in the chat. You weighed in and said, hey, don't forget about Boys and Girls Club. We're doing some magical things too in the midst of COVID-19. But so just real quick, how are you guys pivoting and really being relevant in light of really what's happening right now?
Yeah, so we actually closed the clubs down on March 13th. You know, when things started really happening with COVID in the area, and in the beginning of April, my scholarship team, we kind of kicked off virtual program, and we actually started a YouTube channel for a scholarship program to bring in our scholarship recipients and also our team members to, you know, keep them engaged, keep learning, keep talking about college and career programming, but also, you know, still, even though schools were closed, we still wanted them to engage in some type of learning and in conversation of, you know, what was happening with them personally, how they were impacted by COVID. And from there, we started to do K through 12 programming. So everything that we were doing in person in the club originally, we moved that to a virtual format, and that has continued. We actually have opened our doors to the clubs on a smaller scale, of course, by invite to our families, and we're continuing to do virtual programming as well. And that has really, for me, also, you know, agreement with Willie Barney, that has really prepared students for the type of learning that they're doing right now. And, you know, one thing that I will, you know, encourage, and I agree with everything that has been said. You know, one thing that I have done as a parent, you know, and your prior panel has said, parenting is extremely important. You know, I email, even though we're in a virtual format, I can't meet all his teachers in person right now, but I have emailed all of them and said, hey, you know, even though we're in a virtual world right now, you know, you have my son in your virtual classroom. We're engaged as well as parents, and we want to be informed on what's going on with, you know, what's going on academically, you know, in the virtual world. So we have just continued Boys and Girls Club, going back to that point of virtual programming as well as in person. We're actually in the process of having a virtual town hall next week with our team members to really talk about the social injustices that are going on in the world right now, especially in our nation, to really just engage more of our teens, engage more of our younger people, keep the learning going, as like Richard said, using it many more brain cells. And so that's kind of what we're doing. We're continuing to do that and just really keep our kids engaged, but also keeping that connection with parents as well, and keep them engaged with the online learning and seeing what we can do as an organization to help parents in this virtual world as well.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Tim?
Yeah.
I just wanted to, let me get my minute in real quick.
Okay. Oh, hey, did we miss your minute? Richard, come on, man. You get
Richard told me I had a minute, man.
Okay.
I told him, and you know, Tim tried to take it over. He got me co-host, but he's the host. He wanted to let you know.
All I wanted to say is just echo that we can't let the night go by without recognizing Dr. Logan and her vision and being proactive to get laptops and iPads for 54,000 kids, and working with the school board and realizing that our best option was to do remote, which has created this environment for all of the people to be on deck and help out wherever they can. And the principals, the teachers, the bus drivers, they've talked a lot about how the community is supporting, but we can't go without recognizing the extra.
I think Willie froze, so you might have to take over his minute, Coach Lee.
I can do
They're
that.
going to city council.
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
That is huge, and they are pushing all of us with the sense of urgency that we got to get this right, and we got to fix what needs to be fixed, and we got to accelerate what's working. So I just want to encourage and celebrate Dr. Logan, the board, and all the people inside the system that are doing innovative things to make this happen.
Right on.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. Thank everyone. We're going to transition into our final segment. And you guys are welcome to stay on. We have Dr. Deli Davies, University of Nebraska Medical Center, and then Monique Cribbs with Metropolitan Community College. Barry Thomas as well is going to join us in terms of this next segment. But so let's transition out. And if some of you guys would like to stay and join into this last segment, we're going to really do a deeper dive in terms of education, higher education, and what's happening there, and how it's affecting really educating, and then what we need to do to pivot there in that lane as well. So stay with us, and we'll be joined by those individuals to take it to the next level. So we're going to transition into we're going to pay some bills right now. And stay with us on the panel as we do that.